My name is Margaret. I was 71 the year I learned silence is the sharpest weapon. They thought age had softened me, that the wrinkles meant I'd forgotten how to see through lies. But I hadn't. You don't survive 50 years on a farm, through floods and funerals, by being naive. I was in the hospital after falling from the barn ladder. Cracked ribs, bruised lungs, a broken pride. The doctors told me to rest, but rest is for those who trust the world not to steal while they sleep. My son's wife, Evelyn, visited every day. She brought flowers, smiled politely, and whispered things she thought an old woman wanted to hear. "You've worked too hard, mother. Maybe it's time to let the young take over." Her tone was syrup, but her eyes were ice, and behind that soft smile, I caught something. Calculation. I watched her from my bed as she answered my phone, signed for mail, whispered to my son outside the door. Always hushed, always urgent. I knew the look of someone rearranging pieces before the storm. What she didn't know was that I still had friends who owed me loyalty. The nurse, a good woman, overheard one of her calls. Evelyn was talking to a man about finalizing the sale before I was discharged. The man was a developer, her ex-boyfriend, of course. She told him she'd get my son to sign the papers using medical stress as the excuse. Once the old woman's out of the way, she said, "We'll finally live properly." I almost laughed. The way the greedy always reveal themselves before the trap closes. I didn't say a word. I played the patient old woman. I told Evelyn she was a blessing, that she made recovery easier. She smiled like a snake basking in sunlight. But every night, my lawyer came. We sat quietly in my hospital room while nurses changed shifts. He showed me the documents she was drafting, copies of authorization letters she had helped my son sign. Each paper dripped with arrogance. She thought she was clever. She didn't know I owned her parents' mortgage, bought it cheap 15 years ago when they fell behind on payments. I'd kept it secret because some debts are better saved than collected. When you've lived long enough, you learn that power doesn't shout, it whispers and waits. Weeks passed. She kept tightening her web, contacting realtors, valuers, even pretending to organize a family dinner to celebrate my recovery. I let her. I even called her parents and reminded them of their little debt. They begged for more time. That's when I made my move. "I'll forgive it," I said, "if you help me teach your daughter a lesson in respect." Desperation makes people honest. They agreed instantly. I had them sign a fake purchase contract, making it look like they were buying the farm for 1 shilling. Everything legal, witnessed, and recorded. Meanwhile, Evelyn paraded around like she already owned the place. She ordered new curtains, talked about renovations, and bragged to her friends about selling the land for millions. I sat quietly in my chair, feeding the chickens, listening to her voice echo in the house she hadn't earned. She even told my son that maybe they should move me to a nursing home before the stress kills her. He hesitated, torn between loyalty and manipulation. She knew exactly which strings to pull. Love, guilt, fear. Then came the dinner, the night she planned to crown herself queen. She cooked my favorite meal, laid out the good plates, even wore pearls. "Just family," she said, but I noticed an extra seat for her developer friend, the buyer. My son was uneasy, but she covered it with charm. "It's just business, dear." Halfway through the meal, she raised her glass. "To new beginnings," she said, her eyes locking on me. "You've earned your peace, mother. We'll take it from here." She slid a folder across the table. Inside were papers she'd been waiting months for me to sign. I opened them slowly. My son looked away. I felt the tremor in my hand, not weakness, but timing. I signed, right there, in front of them. Her face lit up. The buyer leaned forward, ready to call his lawyer. Then I said softly, "You might want to check the second page." Her eyes moved across the paper. First confusion, then horror. "What is this?" she whispered. I leaned back, calm as sunrise. It's the deed, I said. You just sold the farm to your parents for 1 shilling. The room went silent. The developer looked at her, disgusted. My son's mouth opened, but no sound came. Evelyn's face drained of color. You can't do this, she said, voice trembling. I already did, I replied. And since your parents owed me more than this farm was worth, I thought it fair to trade your ambition for their roof. Her father stared down, ashamed. Her mother began to cry. My son stood up, pacing. He saw now how she'd played him, how she'd tried to dismantle everything we'd built under the disguise of concern. You used me, he said quietly. She reached for him, but he stepped back. You've ruined us, she whispered. No, I said. You ruined yourself. That night, she packed her things in silence. No apology, no tears, just the quiet defeat of someone who thought she was the wolf and discovered she was the sheep. The next morning, the farm was still mine. Her parents came by, humiliated but grateful. They begged to return the deed. I refused. Let's call it balance, I said. But don't ever mistake mercy for weakness again. They nodded, eyes down. Weeks later, my son came home. We worked the fields together like we used to. No talk of her, no bitterness, just the rhythm of soil and forgiveness. Every time he looked at me, I saw both guilt and gratitude. I told him, don't apologize for being deceived. The clever can lie, but only the wise can see. Sometimes, in the evenings, I sit on the porch she tried to sell and watch the wind roll across the fields. The same wind that's seen every generation rise and fall. I think of her sometimes, where she went, what she tells people about me. Maybe she says I was cruel. Maybe she warns others not to cross old women. Either way, the story serves its purpose. Because revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's about preservation. It's about showing the world that the quiet ones, the ones who listen, wait, and never react, are the most dangerous kind of people. If you've ever been underestimated, if someone's ever tried to write you off because you stayed silent, remember this: silence is not surrender, it's strategy. And those who think they've won often realize too late that the game ended long before they even knew they were playing. That's how you win without raising your voice, without breaking the law, without losing your peace. You wait, you watch, and when the time is right, you let the truth walk in wearing its Sunday best. If you enjoyed this story, if it made you smirk, if it reminded you that karma still keeps receipts, then like, share, and subscribe to Sins Repaid. Because around here, revenge doesn't need anger. It just needs patience, and patience is undefeated.